How to get home to God. Dear younger self, one thing is sure in this human experience: you will find yourself in times of adversity and you will have to face fear. What I will tell you, I want you to hold dear in your heart, for my message will lead you to safety. It is with love and gentleness that I come to you with an offering on this beautiful occasion. My arms reach far and wide in search of your affection, for we are the same. I have battled a few fiery dragons along my journey and faced what seemed like impossible odds on many fronts. The most significant discovery I have made in this world happens to be the one thing this world knows nothing about: perfect love. You see, a famous book called the Bible refers to perfect love as the thing that casts out fear. Let me share a synopsis of what perfect love has helped me achieve and overcome. At age 13, I transformed from being unable to look at myself in the mirror due to facial acne and social ridicule to become sought after by the most popular girls in high school. At age 19, an eating disorder called bulimia devastated my life for 5 years until, in just one night, the power of God's grace set me free. At age 28, I became bedridden and bankrupt with Lyme disease, by far the worst physical trouble yet. Turning to the first principle idea and perfect love, as I will describe in this audio, gave me freedom and a vast fortune, manifesting millions of dollars in the process. At age 43, I saved my marriage and gained mastery over the impulses to be anything other than an honorable husband. At age 44, doctors said I suffered a heart condition and should refrain from all physical activity. In 2 days, I was back doing what I love and expressing my joy in working out, lifting weights, and running. I could share many more examples. Although the challenges may be different, the thing that has helped me overcome them has always been the same. As a side note, we often get so distracted by what's happening in our outer world that we fall asleep in a material dream of existence. Each time, in all the examples above, I use the same process described in this audio: first principle idea-based prayer, to gain victory. And you can too. Back to the story. Oh, how I struggled to win the hearts of many and tasted the bitterness of betrayal in the process. At death's door, I faced an incurable illness in my late 20s. I caught another glimpse of perfect love. My human strength had failed me, and the whole world seemed too overwhelming to carry on. I saw myself as less than lovable, defeated, and broken. Pain and suffering were all I knew during those long, scary days. Nothing worked in terms of helping myself get well and feel good again. All my friends were distant in my memory, and I barely left my room, confined to a bed for most of my days. After digging on the internet to find others who had overcome impossible odds, I discovered all roads led to a divine principle. You must comprehend the words divine principle, relating to an origin from and belonging to God. That's what it means. In the first moment when I saw the truth, again, I was shocked. Here's the thing. In our brief communication here, I can't share the whole story. However, in a nutshell, my inspiration came directly from God. The world is not too keen on God because God disrupts virtually everything about the world outside of you. The world argues that our bodies consist of flesh, bone, blood, and that we need to obey material laws that govern physical bodies. Academics and scholars, doctors, clergy, and even our loved ones profess that we arrived on this planet in little physical bodies and will one day die. In the middle somewhere between birth and death, we're supposed to make the best of our lives. What I profess is that the opposite is true on both fronts. First of all, I believe that our bodies are of spirit, not anything material at all. Yes, it feels like we're solid creatures, and I'll address this in a few moments. Second, I believe that we never left heaven. In other words, we are in a state of dreaming where we occupy the sensation of physical bodies and appear to have landed on a planet foreign to whatever they call God. As a young boy, I would always daydream and invest plenty of time in my imagination. Strangely, those vivid experiences I lived out in my mind often came to pass after some time had progressed. The irony I ask you to consider is, if the image I visualized in my mind was present multiple times, both while daydreaming and while occupying the so-called physical reality days, weeks, or even years down the road, how could my imagination cross over into the realm of physical life and my physical body lack the ability to do the same? In other words, I can't take my physical body into my dreams at night, nor can I take the physical body into my imagination. Yet I can carry my vision with me at all times and even live in it, the same way that little children play, to construct a better world than what my physical eyes see. Here's an example. You can hold a stick in your hand and visualize it as a sword or even a magic wand. But can you take the same stick in your hand and make that stick interfere with the action or activity of your imagining a magic wand right now? Can a physical stick in your hand prevent me from visualizing a hockey stick in my hand? In other words, I can clone the thing that you hold in your hand and carry it in my imagination. What I can't do is bring that physical thing into the realm of non-physical thought and give it life. It remains bound to a single place of time and space. According to how we live as human beings, we sleep about a third of our lives away. We have thoughts carrying us away from what is right in front of us. We think about past or future for a large portion of the remaining two-thirds of our lives. Most of our thinking is worrying over what could happen or regretting what we did or didn't do. I am saying that we invest our attention and focus in our minds for most of the time we are in existence. Wouldn't you agree? Lastly, since our minds can travel to the past and future, clone objects we see, and even change them into something more desirable, doesn't that seem creative? After all, the world agrees from all perspectives that whatever this God is, it's a creator. Interestingly enough, some people don't believe in a creator, and yet they're standing in creation. For if they weren't part of creation, they couldn't exist. Your ability to create in your mind is the same as the Creator's ability to create in Father, Mother, God's mind. The fact is, what I'm explaining to you is divine principle. Again, the definition is an origin from and belonging to God. For instance, if you can clone an object, make a replica of the stick someone else is holding in your mind, it means that the divine principle is an idea held in mind. Alas, we have a marvelous story about a man named Jesus who walked the earth, healed the sick, raised the dead, and laid down his physical body to give all who believe eternal life. Have you heard the story? Of course, the tale goes on about how awfully the world treated him, and yet he only knew love. The same type of love I was healed on by countless occasions. Perfect love. The skinny on that story is that you can do all that Jesus accomplished and more. Would you like to find out how? I'll clue you in on a secret that I've been getting prepared to reveal to you this entire time. Perfect love is God. Yet you won't perform miracles and find the answer by just agreeing with me on this big idea. For my next installment, I must convince you to find out for yourself that what I'm saying is true. To get you into the proper position to claim your inheritance from God as a beloved child, given dominion over the whole material realm, the world outside of you, let's examine perfect love. Since we can understand that you create thoughts in your mind in the same way God creates thoughts in his mind, perfect love is a principal idea of God's thoughts towards you, his child. In the same way that no material stick in your hand could enter your imagination and disrupt the perfect image of thought you hold of something you love, God allows no harm to come near you. Nothing material, including your belief in a physical body, can enter into God's thought of perfect love towards you. Here's why. The physical realm is an idea that God didn't create. Therefore, you've never lived in that realm, nor could anything from that realm ever interfere with the expression of God's creation. You live, move, and have your being in his creation. Life, all life, exists in God's mind and is forever held in its proper place by his idea of perfect love. God imagines you into existence. Anything that is not bringing forth joy, peace, love, kindness, gentleness, goodness, humility, moderation, patience, and harmonious living is not God's creation. If you are observant and get quiet so you can let it sink in, you'll see that all strife, sickness, poverty, and evil are illusions we perceive from a material world out there. Guess what? That material world out there is just like that physical stick that cannot interfere with God's divine idea, his perfect love for you as his beloved child of fortune. It is as unreal as the boogeyman in the dark that you used to fear when you were young. You see, the same interaction is the source of all of our suffering, ignorance of the Father God. The antidote to all our human despair is to bring our creative mind back home to its root. The idea that God is all in all, and there is no other power, presence, cause, or activity. What gets us in trouble is when we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch something through our physical senses, like when I was a little boy and my grandma appeared to suffer from a heart attack. I was terrified. It looked real. It sounded real. It felt real. Grandma in her physical body, as my human eyes perceived her, was no different than the stick you could hold in your hand. Her physical bones and fleshly heart are supposed to have caused her death, as she passed from cancer shortly after a heart attack. When we observe our world in this way, we make assumptions that form beliefs in our minds. Unfortunately, these beliefs are foreign to God. Being only the source of goodness and divine love, God never imagines anything he created as anything less than his reflection. If you were standing in front of a mirror and saw something other than your reflection, something less than, would you be pleased? You wouldn't identify with it, would you? In how the world perceives God, because it knows nothing of him, human belief argues that the image and likeness of God can stray from the divine principle idea that God reflects of himself. After all, God created all, and he declared it was good. What I uncovered is the mystery within the riddle of the question, who am I? You are God's child, his reflection, made in his image, meaning you reflect his imagination. In other words, you are held forever in place as a divine principle idea that perfect love holds together in a spiritual substance of thought that the world has mistakenly called your imagination. How could the world know God if it didn't know that you exist from a divine imagination, and therefore they see only the stick figure that human eyes perceive as flesh and bone? Now, to make your way back home and return to the place of safety and rest from your worries and concerns, recognize that anything out there is void of divine principle, since it cannot enter into those realms of spiritual substance. Yet, since we know God exists in and of everything, everywhere at the same time, now, in what I call now space, can you see how God's spiritual substance, your imagination, is the very divine principle of perfect love? It is the only thing that can be everywhere and in all space at the exact moment of now space, wherever you happen to find yourself in the material dream of living. You're doing great. Focus along these lines with me for a few more moments. I aim to get you home and show you the path to return at any time. Knowing that your actual life is in spiritual substance, what the world calls your imagination, clears up half of the confusion. When you ponder, who am I? You are a child of God, living in His heaven, what is known as child's play or mere daydreaming far too often. You cannot die. You are set apart from the material world. You're not from it, and yet you're dreaming in the material world at the same time. You see, it's the exact opposite of what they told you. You are dreaming in the physical, and you are alive in spiritual substance. The final frontier we must embark upon is to root ourselves in our thought back to divine principle idea and allow for perfect love to cast out our fears. As it is written in 1 John 4, verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. It is fear that causes us to suffer, whether it is sickness, a lack of money, or lack of any good thing. When we identify as a physical thing, a body, living in a material world, with all its seeming troubles, we experience the torment described in the above passage from 1 John. The escape is always the same. Your road home is to spiritualize your thinking and enter the realm of imagination and then purify your personal thought. I repeat, your road home is to spiritualize your thinking and enter the realm of imagination and purify your personal thought. Not to convince the people out there or try and manipulate the circumstances around us, or attempt to heal a sick body. We recognize that everything is first a thought. Nothing material has any ability to occupy or enter that realm where everything exists. Material things are void of causation. They cannot enter the kingdom of thought unless we clone them in our imagination and bring them in. Do you see what I just said? If you see evil, you saw nothing, because God is all in all, and only goodness exists in Him. Evil has no resting place and can only tempt you to believe in it by bringing it into your mind and giving it a home. It's an illusion, and the material world is also an illusion. It is no different than watching a scary movie and then being afraid of the monster you saw. The monster in the film was unreal, as is the clone of it in your mind that you imagined giving evil a place to torment you. A maxim in law states that how you bind something must be reversed in the exact opposite way in order to be unbound. Law means that which is set or established. So if by placing an inharmonious picture, image, or thought idea in your imagination is how you became bound by fear, you reverse the process. I repeat, if by placing an inharmonious picture image or thought idea in your imagination is how you became bound by fear, you reverse the process. You begin this by starting from the first principle idea, the root, where all begins. God is all in all. If God came first and established himself forever as supreme and ruling over all creation, forming all he made within himself and declaring it as good, there is no room left for anything else. Turning away from the physical body, we argue for our existence as a spiritual idea in the mind of God, forever held in place by perfect love. As we insist on this right to bear our privilege of being given dominion over every creature and thing on the earth, we see that it is God that exists, and we are alive in his reflection of his perfection. This control of our mind is the battle you must fight, my dear one. In closing, I will submit to you that as you draw nigh unto God, by persisting in this way of thinking and contemplating your spiritual life as the only life that exists, every idea, every false idea of life in a physical realm must be negated and cast down. Physical existence is not the image and likeness of God, and all the ideas that are not full of peace, love, goodness, kindness, gentleness, joy, and patience are not God's thoughts. You will measure your success in the end as these qualities, the fruits of the Spirit, expressed, and in how well you express them into the empty world of physical reality. When you align with these thoughts and attitudes as reflecting from God, you will be set free from the bondage of the world of material form and all of its fears. Divine love will always meet your human needs. You will remain as safe as God, for you are only known by God when you identify as his offspring, meaning you observe only his image and likeness in your personal thought, attitude, and behavior. After all, you came here for a purpose. You are the light of the world. Selah.